Guys, I love this show so much. So much. I mean, it came as such a surprise to me because when it came out the first season, March of 2021, I'd never heard of Invincible before. I had no clue what it was, and I loved Marvel and DC and like all this other superhero stuff, but I was like, I don't really have interest in this. But then everybody else was watching it, saying how good it was. I'm like, I have Prime Video. I guess I'll check it out, and I just instantly fell in love with it. I really did. And then the thing is, though, when we got season two, it had been so long that I had not necessarily lost interest, but I didn't have the hype and the excitement for it that I did initially ending season one. And it also didn't help that season two was released in two separate parts. I remember when season two started, I think I watched the first episode, but then I ultimately decided after that, I'm just gonna wait. So I didn't even watch the rest of part one until right before part two came out. I was like, all right, I'll get caught up, and then I'll be ready for part two. Um, so I do think that was a mistake to release this in two parts. But either way, I am glad that we now have season two in its whole, in its just beautiful gloriness. This I think I like more than season one, and I loved season one. And to be fair, it also has been a while since I've seen season one. It's been years, but it could be recency bias, but I just really loved season two, because I do feel like season one was more kind of there were more one-off episodes that were focusing on kind of filler villains and like all these random characters. That was cool, and that was a good way to help establish the universe and introduce these characters and everything. But season two, I liked that it was more centrally focused. I really enjoyed that, and just continuing Mark's story. Mark is such an interesting character, and the arc he goes on through this season, from multiple perspectives, as both Invincible as a superhero, but then also in his personal life as Mark Grayson as well. Um, so we are going to be talking about season two here. There are going to be spoilers, so if you haven't seen season two in its whole yet, of course the season finale just came out today. We are going to be talking spoilers, so probably don't watch this video if you don't want spoilers. But we are talking spoilers, and yeah, so let's talk about Invincible season two. And I want to start off by talking about. We're mostly going to be talking about this season finale, but I'll talk about the season as a whole as well. Um, but when it comes to this season two finale, we of course start off with our big bad, our main villain of the season, Angstrom Levy, which I have mixed feelings on as a character and as the villain of this season because Angstrom Levy, he was kind of the focus of episode one. I will say that. And at the time when I watched episode one, like I said, I didn't really love that episode, so that was part of the reason why I decided to wait until all of part one was out. And I now like him a lot more, especially these last couple episodes, and especially this finale. He was a great villain, I think. But it is something you have to point out the fact that he was very much sidelined for this season. And that could be a reason that I love this season so much because he was probably one of my least favorite parts, one of the parts I found least interesting. Because when it came to part two, I I could be remembering incorrectly, but I don't remember for sure if he was even mentioned or appeared at all in the part two premiere. But then episode six, so it was the post credit scene where suddenly he appeared, and I remember literally saying out loud, "Oh my god, I forgot he was even a character." Like I completely forgot about him. And then when it came to episode seven, it ended with that cliffhanger of him being set up with holding his Mark's mom hostage and all that stuff, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's something that's happened, and we're getting that story still." Um, so I do feel like there's more that could have been done with Angstrom Levy, but again, because that wasn't really a character in a storyline I cared personally a whole lot about, I'm fine with it not being a central focus here. But it does feel a bit weird that he was like the main villain of the season. Is it was all built up to really only get kind of that first episode with him and then him just sprinkled a little bit throughout and then getting him for like the first half of this season finale. it was really cool getting all this multiverse stuff. We got kind of a montage of Invincible getting sent to different universes. I thought that was really cool. A lot of this is taken directly from the comics, like with the dinosaurs and all these different universes that he's coming to. Um, there was one with zombies that I feel like is probably a reference to The Walking Dead, since Robert Kirkman, the creator of Invincible, is also the creator of The Walking Dead. So that was cool. But the two most notable ones, one is Batman. So Invincible went to the DC universe, and we got Batman. That also is something that happened in the comics. He's just seen off screen, but still is really cool. And the most notable one was we did get the Spider-Man crossover. Kind of. I mean, it wasn't actually Spider-Man, but when that season 2 voice cast was announced and they were like, "Oh, Josh Keaton is going to be in this season." We were all theorizing, we were all talking about, "Oh, is Spider-Man going to show up?" Because that of course was a crossover that happened in the comics, so we were all highly anticipating that. We've all been hoping for it. Some scoopers had said that, "Oh, Spider-Man will appear." And um for copyright reasons and because of the multiverse as well, um obviously it wasn't actually Spider-Man. It was Josh Keaton, who of course voiced Spectacular Spider-Man in the Spectacular Spider-Man series, my favorite animated Spider-Man series, and just one of my overall favorite animated series of all time. So my favorite voice of Spider-Man. So I loved having him here as this character. He played Agent Spider, which was very much a Spider-Man variant, if you will. Um, different color scheme, different suit, and all that stuff. Obviously, different name. Um, but it was still cool. It was still cool to get that type of character, and especially voiced by Josh Keaton, and to have him fighting a version of Doctor Octopus, except in this universe, he's called Professor Octopus. Um, and to have him talking about how he knows about the multiverse and know he's been dealing with a lot lately, um, obviously in reference to getting a lot of Spider-Verse stuff lately with Spider-Man No Way Home and the Spider-Verse films. So I thought that was great. I thought that was really cool to see. Just a small little cameo, but still it was awesome because that was the big thing I was hoping for in this season. That was the big thing that was built up that we were all theorizing about. So I'm glad that we got that. Even if it wasn't actually Spider-Man, I was still really incredibly happy with it. And we did also get some flashbacks for Angstrom Levy as well, where you got to see him having a kid, and just in every universe, how he is affected by Invincible, and how in pretty much every other universe, Invincible is a murderer. He is a villain, and seeing Angstrom's take on that, and that is why he hates Invincible and wants to protect this universe and all that. I thought that was really cool. I enjoyed the backstory on him. But again, the character was very short lived because then, of course, right after this, he gets murdered by Invincible, which was a huge moment here, which I absolutely loved. It thought it was built up perfectly. It makes sense for this point in Mark's character arc. I mean, he's going through so much right now, so much stress, and so when it gets to this point, and his mother and now his brother are in danger, um, it makes sense that he would go to that breaking point, and it is kind of a parallel to the season 1 finale, where you got that same exact moment with Omni-Man just beating the crap out of his son, except the only difference is Omni-Man, Nolan was able to resist that final fatal punch, but Mark was not. He did that fatality, and he murdered Angstrom Levy, and it's this big moment. So I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really well done. And some of just the moments here throughout this episode where he is just now reflecting on himself. He's deciding he's dropping out of college. He needs to reflect on himself. He thought he was stronger. Um, I love that line. That's the title of the episode as well. Um, and he now has to learn his own strength. He now has to reflect on the fact that he literally just murdered someone. That's a big deal. And there's these kind of suicidal thoughts that he has as well, um, which obviously makes sense when he's in that perspective. And all hope is lost. He literally says, "I'm probably going to die here," just like how Angstrom Levy just died here. And he literally says, "But I kind of want to." But then the Guardians show up, except it's the Guardians from this universe 20 years in the future. Um, well, yeah. So it was 20 years ago when Invincible disappeared from their universe. So they show up and they save him. and they send him back to his universe, but not before Adam Eve, this future version of her, says that he needs to tell his version of Eve how he feels because she is in love with him, and we are gonna get into this in in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about um, some of this other stuff that was happening towards the end of the episode. Like obviously we have the stuff with Omni-Man. So Omni-Man, he's going on his redemption arc, I guess. Which after season one, you would never think that that would be even possible. But it's being set up here really well. I love the stuff with earlier on in the season with his return and finding out he has a son and a new wife and all that stuff. I thought that storyline was great. He's now being held captive by the Viltrumites, and he's being prepared for execution, but Alan has showed up to basically come to his rescue. So I think that's great. That's really something that was more set up for season three. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. We also have some Guardian stuff going on. Like Duplicate is alive, the original version of her, so her whole thing with Immortal. I think that's great. That's beautiful, romantic, blah blah blah. Um, the mummy guy, I guess, is back. I don't know if that's something they're actually setting up because that was something that happened in season one very briefly in like one scene and I completely forgot about it. I don't know. So it might just be a running gag that every season we see this and it's like a scene building up to it and then it just gets shut down again. I don't know, but we got that anyway. And yeah, I guess let's kind of end this off by talking about really the love triangle that is no longer having to be a triangle because Mark and Amber, of course, broke up in last episode. And I'm going to be honest, in season one, I did not love Amber. I kind of didn't like her character, but that's going to be um, mostly due to the fact that I wanted Mark to get with Eve. I was like, oh, that's the perfect superhero couple right there. Um, but then they got together, and all of season two, I've actually really loved Amber. I've loved her relationship with Mark. I thought that was all great. And I think their breakup was handled really, really nicely. I thought that was really beautifully done. The build up to it, where in episode six you thought it was going to happen, but then they were still, they're working through things. They're still going good. Um, but then episode seven, it was just the last straw, and they broke up. And but then now you have Eve, and we end the season like the final shot of the final scene of this season is Mark talking to Eve, and Mark is about to tell her how he feels, and we don't exactly know if he feels the same or not, but he has to tell her either way so that she can move on or so that they can be in love. And we don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be that he's in love with her. That's what makes the most sense. They've always had that connection. Um, and but to be fair, he also just got out of his relationship with Amber. So I don't know, but I'm really hoping that they get together because again, that's the perfect superhero couple. I love them together as characters. I love the relationship. Um, Eve, I loved her arc in this season as well. Everything she went through, I loved that special episode of Adam Eve that we got over the summer. That was great. And I loved everything she had with Rex as well. Rex had a great arc here as well, his redemption arc. Just this show is so good at storytelling. That's really what it is. And there's so many storylines going on here, so many characters to talk about. That is why some things like Angstrom Levy maybe aren't focused on as much. But I loved how everything was done here, and I'm really satisfied with this, and I am now really sad that we have to wait for season three. But luckily, it's been said that there will be a much shorter wait time between season two and season three, so it won't be another 2 years like it was between season one and season two. So we'll be getting season three hopefully soon-ish. I saw a rumor the other day that it was coming winter 2024, which I highly doubt because um, I mean, that would be like maybe November, December, which would be cool, but that's very extremely soon. My guess and my hope is hopefully March of next year, because that was another thing why I didn't really get into Invincible when part one came out, was just because it was November. I mean, it was the holiday season going into Christmas and everything. I was busy, I had a lot of other stuff going on, and it just didn't feel like the mood and the vibe of Invincible. But season one came out in March. Part two came out in March. I just love Invincible as like a start to spring, a transition from winter to spring, March, April-ish show. I love that vibe for it. Speaking of vibes, soundtrack here was fantastic, especially the original song last episode, "Feel It" by David. Oh, love that song. I've been playing that on repeat since last week. Oh, I love it so much. Um, just like I love this show. So, guys, what did you think about Invincible season 2? What did you think about all these storylines, all these characters, and everything that is set up for now season 3? Which, again, hopefully will be coming soon-ish. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything goes on in the movie life.